Bella's here. All right. So this is the package specialization subgroup meeting on Monday, the 15th of May. So the good thing is that all our functions are merged.
Hey, congratulations.
Ship it.
So I would like to thank everybody who helped us achieve that. So if you look, so maybe let me share the board, where we are at.
So, I mean, I know I saw some messages from this one about some integration tests and all. I didn't have a chance to look at it. Maybe we'll go now, pull it down and try to exercise it and reach out for help or any questions on Slack.
Yeah, so basically, so this is our board. So implement VLAN backend. So this will not be complete, but it will not be merged, but it's actually done. Right. So I added that as a note in the So this is something that is we probably will we can still do it if you want, but it will require quite some review because there's quite some code. And then we have the pipeline tests. So is by the way, before I go there, I send a note to the Slack to say, given that we are in the state that we are, I believe that we don't need 2 meetings a week anymore, right? Are we okay to take the Monday meeting as the only meeting per week going forward? Is there anyone who has a problem with it?
No problem. +1. I mean, as long as you guys are available on Slack for any questions.
Yeah, for sure. That doesn't change.
Yeah. So we have Monday and Thursdays, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So the idea is to retain the Monday because that falls mostly within the sprints, typically, right?
Yeah. True. Yes, that makes sense. Yes.
That was my reasoning.
Yeah. +1 to that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I'll update the calendar for that. So I think the only thing open pending is the specialization test, I believe, Isti. So you're still working on that, right? So the framework.
Yes.
That's still pending. And
as usual, I had to split it into 2, to the modifications to the library and the actual tests. And during the tests, I already so some issues already came up, and we thought this through with Akash and Ganesh. So they are being handled. They are very minor, trivial things, so no problems. No big problems. They are found.
Yeah. Vish, you have a question?
I just wanted to comment saying that I would be interested in that, anything related to test, to see, to make it as generalized as possible from both end-to-end integration and unit test perspective. I know this is in the integration test perspective. So would like to be part of any PR reviews that happens there. I would appreciate if I could be CC'd on that.
Okay. Is it? So if I CC you in the
just add him as a reviewer.
Okay.
Would appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So right now the big PR is dependent on this very small other library PR that I'm adding you in the meantime. So the tests will not be green until it is merged. That is for sure.
I see.
But
this is the
lowest one. The lowest one. This is the
one?
big PR with the actual tests, and the top one on the list from previous, that KRM function pipeline test lib. That is a very small PR. That is some changes to the library files. I had to split this in 2 because first we have to update the library, then that is in a separate Go module, and then I have to point the pipeline test Go mod file to the new commit the library module.
So
You can-
Ishwan,
yeah.
you want us to review this one first before the big one, right?
Yes, I think that this is very easy to review. So please review the small one, this one.
Yeah.
This is very easy to review. It is not too many changes, as you see. It is one file basically just adding one more parameter to a function. That's all. It is very easy to review. And then I can make in the other PR, all the tests to make be green.
So this seems to be
Actually,
following the KPD functions, right? The golden test. I saw something similar in the KPD functions SDK that was originally there.
That is exactly the same thing with some additions, but it is based on that. Yes. So this is why I call it a pipeline test, because it is not an integration test. It doesn't. We don't actually build the Docker images of the KRM functions. We are not using Porch to call the pipeline of a kept package. What we do is that we create a test that is based on Go's unit testing framework and using this golden test framework from the KRM function SDK with some additions. And what we do is to use the source code, the Go source code of all the KRM functions, call the main function of all of them on the same resource list that is initialized with an input kept package, and the output, the final kept package or the final resource list, is compared to some expected output. That is all that we do. And this is done in each and every pre-submit test from now on. If this will be merged, any change of any Go file will trigger this test, and you won't be able to merge a PR that doesn't pass this test.
Oh, cool. That is good. That's probably one of the good milestones to have. You want to make sure that, yeah, that's great. So it's part of your make file changes because it gets invoked by Pro as part of make files.
The good thing in this is that you don't even have to change the current makefile for this, because our current makefile automatically finds all the Go mod files. All I did is that I put a Go mod file into this pipeline test directory, and then the Go test will be automatically run on this for the existing resubmit test. However, in parallel, I'm also working on cleaning up our makefile system. So our makefiles and how we handle multiple Go modules right now is working. So it is good enough. It was good enough to unblock ourselves to go forward. But now that we have the more important stuff done after this pipeline test is merged, I will send a PR to make this a little bit cleaner and handle the different makefiles of different KRM functions and the pipeline test and the library and the root makefile in the root of the repo I think it's a bit cleaner. It will be a bit cleaner implementation of what I did last time. So I can say that this is messy right now because I did it. So it is my fault that it is messy right now.
Oh, no. Don't think it is. Everything is evolution, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So no problem, but I still want to clean this up.
Yeah, there is still a few things that we can improve. Because, okay, I think now we have a good view of the pattern that we need to accomplish, right? But okay, during that whole journey, we learned quite a bit, so we have to do some cleanup. But we have to first focus on stability, so we have to first focus on that everything works, and then we can improve.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, so Visual, this will run purely. So this is seen as part of Go test framework. So this will.
Then it's cool. Then it's cool.
Yes.
The goal always is to actually make sure that anybody else contributing code by either fixing a bug or adding new code don't have to do anything special in their dev environment. I think that's the key, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that
is
exactly the idea.
Oh, wait a minute, it worked on my dev system, but then when I run it, when the pro job runs it, it seems to fail. What is it that the pro is doing different? That is why I was like asking to make sure that it is part of standard our make, because make definitely does the go test. When you do that make run test,
Yes.
it will run the
Plus, also every
Yes.
check-in will be validated, right? So,
yeah.
the thing is that if someone changes something that that breaks something, it will be seen. So that's the other good thing, I think. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely, because there's so much dependency right from the NF topology package variant and back into producing the actual output. Yeah, this is a great improvement in my view to catch any check-in breaking any of those assumptions.
Yeah, correct. All right. Isti, you had another topic you wanted to discuss, right? Your slides?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah. I made a very fancy slide in quotes. Can you share it? Actually, I don't have it in front of me. Do you have it open? It is just one slide. I made a wow.
Right.
I made a link in the agenda in the document. Okay, that is it. Okay, so what we do now, right now, in our current implementation, is that in the left side you can see what is the input of the pipeline of the package specialization pipeline that we have. That includes some KRM functions and specializers as well. And so the package that comes out, basically the package variant controller, will contain the cat file, of course, some cluster context capacity, meaning some configuration that is coming from the target cluster, interfaces. If this example is a UPF package, so it will, for example, contain 3 interface type KRM objects that has no owner reference set, and that's it. So basically, these are they will be assumed by our functions to belong to the one and only network function that this package wraps or encapsulates. And there might be DNNs as well in the package. And that works. So as my pipeline tests prove, it works or it will work in a day.
I think there's one dependency, right? There's one dependency right now is the order, right? So the thing is that what we discussed at some point is it works because of we have a certain order of the pipeline.
Yes, and we will have. And I had, so while I did the pipeline tests and put all things, what I basically had to do is to put all things together and play the scenario that we will typically have in the use cases in the POC of release 1. And my first problem was, it is a very easy thing is that my first problem is I already did that. All of the interface objects, all of the IPAM allocation objects, all of the VLAN allocation object in this package doesn't have an owner, or at least it has an owner, but it ends at the interface. It doesn't associate it with the network function or an application. And that means that for each and every CAP package, there might be only one network function, and I'm not sure if that network function may have multiple pods where for example, the N3 interfaces belongs to a different pod than the N4. I'm not sure about that, for example, but it may work. The only thing that that you can tell this package, that the only reason you can tell that this package is actually a UPF package is because in the pipeline, there is a KRM function that is called UPF deployment generator. And only the name of this function hints that this is a UPF function. What I suggest is that, and how it will work, that our KRM functions will generate a UPF deployment at the end. Yes.
Sorry, could you repeat your last statement if you don't mind? Just
okay. So if you see this list, if you look into this list, CAP file, cluster context, interfaces, and DNN, nothing says that this is a UPF.
Yes, yes.
it can be an SMF, it can be a web server, as far as I know. I mean, I know that M3 sounds like a network function, but still it can be a, I don't know, any application.
Yeah.
The only thing that how it will become a UPF is that in the pipeline of this package, we will have a KRM function. It will be typically the last one that is called this UPF deployment generator KRM function. And when everything else is created by other KRM functions and specializers, then it will generate a UPF deployment resource from scratch. It will add this to the CAP package.
Yeah. Now, is the one thing what we always intended to do when the CAP package came from the package management is they would set the condition of UPF deployment to false.
Yes, but
so
even that is not needed right now.
No,
So
correct. We designed it to avoid that even.
Yes, and how my alternative solution for this would be that I, as the network service designer role, who will create the network topology and basically will have a say in how the package that the network topology controller will create, how it will look like, basically how the package, and to go one step further, how the package that the package variant controller will create will look like. I want to create a package. So I want this whole package specializer pipeline to start with a package that already has a UPF deployment. However, it might only have a name, a type, so an API version, a kind, a name, and a namespace. I would also suggest that it would also point to some vendor-specific parameters as well at this point, because at this point, I'm the network service designer. I already know that I want to use a free 5GC UPF or a Samsung UPF at this point. So I have to decide that. And so I would create a more or less empty UPF deployment in the package already at the beginning. I would point these interfaces like N3, N4, N6 to this UPF deployment as the owner of those interfaces. And let's stop here. So that is my main idea. I don't want to go into network attachment definitions because all I'm saying is that the same thing we can apply to NADs as well.
So
Yeah.
let me ask a little bit more fundamental question. As
Okay.
to my understanding, probably it may help others too. So we talked about. I think I'm missing something in between here. That's why I'm asking this question. So from network architect perspective, idea was to say the user will define, I need this 5G core. I need, say, let's make a very simple example. I need one AMF, one UPF, one SMF. That is what the user defines at the network topology level, right? At the very high level intent.
So my understanding.
Okay, that's the user defines, and my question is when that's a single package, right? The user will define a single package. I want this particular
It is
thing.
a single package that mostly contains package variant sets, but each package variant set points to another CAP package. For example, the UPF package variant set will define that I will need one or two UPFs in these kinds of target clusters that match this label selector, for example, and I want these packages to be cloned from this original UPF package.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about that original UPF package.
Yeah, he talks about the blueprint. So the blueprint contains the dependencies. Whereas, so basically when the blueprint starts, is basically your UPF deploy. There is a UPF deployment in it. It has the dependencies to the other resources that are in its package. It has to be resolved. By the way, there was always the idea to do that. By the way, but there I think given the time, so if you look to the slides that Arafin has, so we were always planning to do that, but our design doesn't fall. It still works with that. If you would do that, our design doesn't change.
No, what I want to do is to modify very slightly the NF generation, NF deployment generator function so that it wouldn't ever create a deployment from scratch. For example, if I have the same input package and in the pipeline, I accidentally put an UPF generator function and an EMF generator function, then it will generate a UPF and an EMF in that package as an output. It is obviously a bug, but both of them will succeed, and there will be two deployments, one for the UPF, one for an EMF, and both of them will have the same interfaces. That is obviously not what we want.
Okay, so I guess you're putting in some placeholders then that the specialization can hook on. And if the placeholders, aren't there, then you can spot that somebody has put in the wrong package, so yeah.
That is
no, I mean, we will not spot that because we will, what will just happen is that the thing just doesn't generate. The mistake is still in the package. But
or
we will not spot this. Yeah, but so normally this would
create a generic pipeline for a 5G core that works for all CNFs that we have a NF deployment generator function, and so that works like this. According to this, we can use the same pipeline for all of them. And yes, if there is a UPF deployment already in this package, then it will create a UPF. Then if it's an EMF deployment, then it will create an EMF. And there could be still a UPF deployment generator in the pipeline, but it will just do nothing because it wouldn't find the UPF deployment in the package, and it will conclude that, okay, I have nothing to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that would also allow us to put multiple CNFs into the same package. By the way, I'm not sure if it is needed, but it is very easy to do. And so why not, please?
Yeah, so but at the moment, see, at the moment, what we did is that because there was this dependency towards John thing, we decided when we designed the NF deploy function not to focus on that dependency at the moment because we would create too many things. So we decided for now to make this work independent whether this is there or not, right? Because otherwise you create a dependency. But we could. The difference is that someone, when he creates the package, needs to put these dependencies into the original package. That's what has to happen in the blueprint we talk about.
Yes.
So again, one more fundamental question. So from the top down to both ST and WIM. So from the blueprint packages, obviously there'll be, in this particular example that I took, there'll be three sub packages, or
no, we are talking only UPF, Bala, right? So UPF,
yeah, I know.
And by the way, yeah. So UPF will. So today, right? If you look at the current UPF package, there is just resources in it, right? I think ST, just to be clear, when you talk on the reference, you talk about the kept conditions, I'm assuming, right?
No, I'm talking about the annotation that we have, the special annotation, that we are using in the kept package, that is nephew.org/owner.
Okay, so one of the two. So what he is suggesting is that all the resources that are in there, but in that case, DNN should also be dependent on UPF, by the way.
Yes, that is okay. I deliberately didn't want to go into DNN and network attachment definition, so keep it simple.
And capacity should also do that. So all capacity.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe if capacity is not below, it doesn't belong to the target cluster, but belongs to the UPF, then yes, definitely. So
yeah, it belongs to the UPF. Yeah. So yes. You have to capacity, the interfaces, and DNN. I would not create network attachment definition. I think that should not be there.
Okay, then so I agree. First, let's talk about just interfaces and the capacity then.
And DNN.
And DNN. Oh, okay, maybe not even DNN because DNN may be special because one DNN can belong to multiple UPFs, isn't it? But okay, maybe DNN. Okay.
Yeah, they have to be,
Okay,
and otherwise
okay.
we put another DNN inside that does the same, right? That's not a problem.
Okay. So basically we have these objects that together will help us create the final UPF deployment. We need the information from all of these, and they will trigger the allocation of IPs, VLAN tags, everything at the end. We will fully hydrate the UPF deployment here.
But that also means, Isti, that in my view, UPF deployment should run first.
Actually,
So
if you look into the
first
pipeline
and
test,
last.
it is so. Right now,
Because today I cache only added the generate function. You should also add the populate function.
So in my pipeline test, the order of the functions is yes, it starts with the NF. It starts with the NAD. Whatever. So yeah, but okay. Let's focus on this thing. We can discuss that as well. What would be the final order of the functions in the pipeline? And we shouldn't forget that the whole pipeline will be ran. For example, the whole pipeline will be ran before any specializer, IP allocation specializers ran. And then after the IPs are allocated, then the whole pipeline will be ran again. And then after the VLAN are allocated, most probably will trigger the whole pipeline again and again. But still, the idea of that is what I'm talking about is the difference here is to not to put this UPF deployment here. So in this this package will be, or at least the this package, this input UPF package will be in a package, capped package repository, meaning in a Git repo, and the package variant set in the network service definition capped package will point to this package. So far it is this 5G packet core. We will have a 5G packet core capped package with a lot of package variant sets, and one of the package variant sets will say that I want UPFs and in these clusters, and that package variant set will have a field called upstream that will point to this package that I'm talking about.
Yes.
And since this is a UPF package, I want it to contain a UPF deployment. A very, very, very empty UPF deployment, but I would think that this is much more intuitive, if it makes sense to you.
Yeah, I mean, thanks. I understand what you're saying. On one hand, see, I'm trying to think in two different ways. Let's examine our existing way. Our existing way is our package specialization is unopinionated. There is no opinion. It is completely declarative. It runs based off of the pipeline defined. So it just does not assume anything. So there is no any particular semantics associated with it other than the pipeline itself. So it blindly runs the pipelines and then generates the outputs. So to your example that you said, if somebody makes, in today's case, if somebody makes a mistake and puts two functions, both for AMF and UPF, it will generate both instead of generating one. Yes. That may be a bug, but that may be a bug, like Wim said, that may not be a bug with a specialization code. That's a bug with somebody who created the package, right? So what I like about today's thing is, it is not opinionated. It's very declarative. You will just do, this is your input, this is your pipeline, and you simply run the pipeline to generate whatever the output of that pipeline is. You're completely unopinionated. You're not making assumptions about any semantics.
But so that is also but the package is the same. So you will still have in the original 5G packet core kept package, one package variant set pointing to one package that has the UPF deployment generator function in its pipeline, and another package variant set that pointing to an EMF package. So I don't see the difference, to be honest, from this point.
See, today, I think for me, the way to explain it at the moment, we are implying it's a UPF deploying, and we are assuming that because there's a UPF function in there, that this is a UPF package. So it's all implicit, right? What ST is proposing is making it more explicit.
Okay, then, okay, right? That's an honest question from
but
my
Bala,
part.
But Bala, it's still declarative in nature, because the whole way that the pipeline gets executed is still the same.
Yes.
And one thing I wanted to clarify, and that's back to the original discussion that we had a couple of weeks ago, is that the order of the pipeline is very important right now in release 1. But that has nothing to do with specialization. That has to do with the kept pipeline. It's just a sequential way of actions, and we can fix that. But yeah, but the way the pipeline is constructed and the order matters in R1.
Yes. So thanks, Wim. I understand statistical radio, but there is one subtle difference though with the new approach that ST is proposing with the existing approach. Ravi, sorry, I know your hands raised.
Yeah.
Since this is related, I will yield the floor once I make this point. So in the existing approach, there are no semantics associated with the specialization module. Rather, it does not make assumptions. It simply runs and produces the output. In the way ST is proposing, as I understand, maybe my understanding is not right. ST, please help me. Please correct me if it is not. In your case, let's say you're proposing to make it very explicit. So so you have this empty package that is fed on to this package specialization module, in this particular case, UPF deployment. And let's say somebody makes the same bug. Somebody creates two pipelines. So in the same pipeline, they have the functions for UPF and then AMF. In your example, it is making an assumption that, oh, there are these pipelines. Since you will run the UPF because the UPF empty definition is there as a part of the package, and you will not run the EMF because the empty definition is not there. Is that the right understanding?
Yes, but that is so from my point of view, this is a feature. So if you want to achieve from one package to generate both an EMF and an UPF, this makes it possible for you. You will put a UPF, empty UPF deployment and an empty AMF deployment. With our current solution, that is not possible at all. Does this make sense? Oh,
I did not get the second. I did not get that point. What was that? Sorry, I did not understand that point.
Okay, so if you actually want to achieve that with one kept package, you want to create at the end a UPF deployment, a fully hydrated UPF deployment inside the package, and also a fully hydrated AMF deployment in the same package. And the UPF deployment will have N3, N4, N6 interfaces, and the AMF deployment will have N1, N2, N3, whatever interfaces in it. Then with what I'm proposing, it is achievable. With our current solution, you cannot do that.
Well, that's what I want to understand. Why we cannot do that? That's what I didn't understand.
Because the interface N3, N4, the interface objects in our current solution, all of the interfaces will be added to for example, you have these four ideas that I'm not sharing. So if you have these three interfaces in the package, and you call the UPF deployment generator, it will put into the UPF deployment that it generates all the interfaces in the package. And if you also call the AMF deployment generator, it will also put all the interfaces in the package, because there are no ownership.
Yeah.
You cannot select the interfaces between what belongs to the UPF and what belongs to the AMF. So I would say that this is and I have this problem, and this is, I really don't know, something I really don't know. So this is not this question.
I think you are proposing two things in my view. I think you're introducing the concept of ownership. That is one thing.
That is already in the package, but not for UPF deployments. We already have the owner references. We are already using them. The IP allocation that we create for an interface has already an ownership reference annotation that points to the parent interface. We're already using them.
Yeah.
We do that. We do that internally from the moment we run. But,
yes. Internally we do that. But
yes,
internally we do that. Okay. Now I understand. So you're essentially, so that concept is not possible. You're saying that the tying in of interfaces to a particular thing is not possible if you do not have this empty package.
Yes, because you don't have the thing that you want to point to. You have nothing.
There is different ways to achieve that, right? We can do it through a condition, or we can do it through an empty resource. I think there's both options there that we can use. In my view, we have to set a condition as well. Otherwise, we have to do some change in the way that the UPF deployment runs in the beginning. Because you will have to set a condition as well, right? So there is a change required in the SDK, in my view, if you want to, unless you put a condition as well, then there is no change.
So you want the interfaces and the DNN's ownership to point to a condition instead of a resource.
No. What I'm trying to say is the following:
signal that this interface belongs to an AMF and this other interface belongs to an SMF. How would you do that with conditions?
No, wait. So what I'm saying is we also have to set the condition of UPF deployment to false, is what I'm saying. Besides what you're saying, we also have to add that condition there.
Okay.
Because the problem, the thing is the following, right? If you look to because we have two functions, we have populate and generate, right? Now we are going into the detail. The populate is basically doing, unless we can maybe do a change there, right? Is basically generating the child resources, if you will, right? If you look, interface and capacity and DNN are somehow child resources of UPF deployment, right? And
yes.
So what the populate function does, it says, okay, generate them for me, but they don't have any data, right? So we have to implicitly imply that they are there, right? And so there is something in the SDK that we have to do if we want to go down that path. In which case you have, in that case you have to put UPF deployment first, but also last. And that is to do with how the pipeline works. But there is some change to be done in the SDK, and you can avoid that change if you also set a condition to false of the UPF deployment.
Okay. Yes, but these are, for me, these are implementation details on how to implement.
Sure.
So Ravi, please go ahead. I know you've been waiting for
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
I was just trying to probably add to the discussion. So because what I understand is that the parent package, the kept file, has a context. I think what Wim was suggesting, there is something there to say there's some conditional flag saying that, okay, this is a UPF, this is a kept package, that the context is basically corresponds to a UPF. And so you have these set of interfaces, and then you have to conduct your specialization. I thought that context is understood, right? When you read the kept package itself, or the kept file itself. Are we saying that, okay, these, and obviously once you know that, you have to have some 3GPP context in your specialization
functions that says that, okay, if it's a UPF, then okay, only these interfaces make sense. If it's an AMF, then the other set makes sense, right?
Yeah, but we don't do that checking because we are. So Ravi, we assume that what's in the package is right? So someone has put in the right things. So if someone puts like N100 interface in there, we are not building validation rule that N100 does not exist in 3GPP, right? So that's something we don't do because we are assuming that.
We very well want to add validation. So we have these validation kernel functions, and we very well want to add those that will check specifically for UPF specific configuration. Maybe even vendor specific.
In my view, that does not belong in specialization. That belongs in the creation of the blueprint package.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I think I agree with
because
him.
we can validate like a gazillion things. You will never stop, right? So the way the guy that builds the package, it has to be correct, right? And we want if you want to do stuff over there, they can do that over there.
I'm sure it will never happen, but it can happen that our specialization pipeline messes things up, and the output is, even though the input that we have is valid, the output that we generate is not valid. So it would still make sense to do some sanity checks on whatever we generate for me before we apply it to a cluster. So that for me is
okay, but that we have, right? There is nothing wrong because there is still a validation side once we are done to say, is this okay or not okay? I mean, and then we can if there is a bug somewhere, we can catch it like that. So that's not a problem. But let's not avoid doing too many things if you don't have to, right? I mean, see, the problem here is if the input is not right, it has to be checked at the input level, and that's when the blueprint package gets created.
Of course. So the validity of the input should be checked by the I don't know, the topology controller probably, or something like that. That is sure.
No,
I'm just saying that maybe our output should be also validated. But okay.
So the assumption is blueprint package, whoever has authored it, network designer, it has been approved and can be assumed to be correct by the specializer.
And
that
also,
is what
so
the other thing is I agree with Wim. I mean, I mean, specialization, we need to really consider the separation of concerns. I'm with Wim. I don't know. I mean, we should not, in a UPF generation, we should not assume that whether somebody has already defined all the interfaces, whether he has defined some new other interface. I'm not sure whether that's a place. I think the beauty in the specialization today I like is it is not opinionated. If there is an input, it has to run through certain functions and certain specializers. It does it and it produces the output. It only
but eventually, I think you probably may not be able to avoid it because UPF itself has multiple variants, right? So when you have the intermediate UPF, the UPF that is basically your the traditional gateway kind of that operates in that mode. So you probably may have to do a lot more checking, right? I mean, I mean, of course, initially at the blueprint level you have to, but what I'm saying is that these things have to go through the entire life cycle aspect so that
yes, I mean,
true
validation is needed, but validation is needed, but we are just, I think, figuring. Ravi, you make a great point, but what we are saying is probably specialization may not be the place to do it, because in terms of architecture, in terms of separation of concerns, at this point of time, its responsibility is run the pipeline and hydrate the package, and that's what it is doing. And then probably those kind of validations of any particular package needs to happen above it. It's what I feel.
And Bala, we have a validation step before it's applied to the cluster. Remember, right? With shift left. So when the package gets hydrated, before someone gets applied, someone has to approve it, right? So there
Yes.
is a validation element
is.
there, and I think this belongs in that space. So
Yeah,
and
exactly.
of course,
I think that
yeah.
this is exactly what I was talking about, that validation. But I still have this unanswered question that, so if I understand
But
correctly.
yeah, just to add to that, there is talks about automatic approval too through a controller.
Yes.
Maybe that's the
Yes.
place. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it
That is
should
what I
happen.
was
That's
talking
what.
about, that some of them will be automatic, these long-running validation processes, and some of them will be manual, then a human has to approve it. That is the idea, and that is exactly where all I said is that the output of the specialization should be validated, and I think we are all talking about the same thing, that we have an understanding there.
But we should not do it within specialization. The output of specialization will be validated. I think that's the discussion point.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had one more question. What this need for this network attachment definition? I mean, what was that for? I can understand the UPF and basically setting the explicit context for that, but what was the need for NADs, empty NADs?
I don't think we should do that. Empty NADs, in my view, is not the right way forward. What we do have to do, but this is still a discussion that we have to have with ISTI, is that the problem with NADs is that in our current approach, that would be an optimization in my view. And it's aligned with this thing a little bit. So today, what we did is interface can, so an interface, when it runs, depending on the information in interface, requires an NAD or not, right? Now, typically at the moment, so we also require IP addresses, right? So that means that when the interface runs, it could generate an NAD, but only half, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. And so we decided at the moment not to do that. And the reason is the following, is that how do you diff this thing against something that is half-baked, right? So we need to have a much more advanced diff capability to be able to validate, to see whether there is any changes or not. And so at the moment, we decided not to do so. So what happens is basically, rather than doing a half-baked NAD, we generate a condition, and then the NAD takes the condition and he generates the full NAD based on all the information that he has, right? So that's the approach that we have right now. So we know we have to look into that to see whether we could do this more advanced diff, but it's a bit, NADs are very special here in the sense that it's a meta controller type of thing. So it depends what you want to get out of it. So it's rather complicated stuff. So we decided not to do so. But I think if you would generate even the half-baked, it makes the whole, let's say, SDK simpler. So there's a bunch of checks that the SDK is doing right now to go for this approach that we have. So we could ease the SDK by making, ease the function even to do the other approach, but it will require a much more advanced diff capability than what we have right now. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. No, I was thinking because the NAD itself is kind of orthogonal to a specific application or surface, right? I mean, it's primarily.
Yeah, that's for me. Yeah, that's for me. NAD is not to be generated upfront because the pipeline will determine whether we need that or not. And but we have to do one optimization for NADs going forward, which is doing this more advanced diff. And if we can do that, it makes the SDK simpler, by the way. Even the function will become simpler.
So yeah, even the proposal here wouldn't be that the network attachment definitions will be pre-created. That is, it looks like, I know, but it would be that whatever Wim said, that the interface function would generate a half-baked network attachment definition, but it is problematic because the node doesn't have a proper scheme, but just a string that is a JSON inside it, and that is a mess. But okay, so that's why I think that I still want to go back to UPF deployment because I don't understand something. So in my understanding, the UPF deployment that we generate will be applied to the workload cluster, and then Kubernetes controller there will interpret this. And at the end of the day, it will deploy the free 5GC UPF. Is this true?
Yes.
It means
plus
that
it also
by
needs
end of-
NEDs, but yeah.
For me, it needs a lot of things that we also generate for it. But from my perspective, what it means that the UPF deployment should also contain at least a pointer to some free 5GC specific configuration parameters that are needed for the operator, the controller in the workload cluster, to create the day zero configuration for the free 5GC deployment that we are doing, or even a day one deployment. Isn't it true?
Yes, but these are things that we do not have to specialize.
Okay, but that is my question. But still, the UPF deployment that we create as part of the specialization should have at least a reference to those parameters. Isn't it true?
Not in release 1. We decided to avoid that.
Okay, but not in release 1, but conceptually, in whenever it works, whenever we are ready with this, it should have a reference. We have vendor-specific parameters.
UPF has that capability. The spec has that capability, but the workload guys didn't want to do that for now.
Okay, I'm just not talking about the current implementation. Conceptually, do we want to have a reference or do we not? How it is implemented, what is the state of the implementation is not what I'm talking about. I really honestly don't understand this.
We will need references going forward.
Yes,
but at the moment we did.
And that is my question. So if there is no UPF deployment resource that we can start with, in this starter UPF deployment, the network service designer role could already filled out these configuration parameters via the topology controller, via the configuration feature of the package variant controller. But if there is no UPF deployment to begin with, no resource, no Kubernetes resource to hold the reference to these vendor-specific configuration, then how will we get that? That is my honest question. I really don't know.
See, there's two ways to do that. Is you basically you make a reference to the resources that are in the package by just reading them and just applying them, right?
But
that's one way, or you do it explicitly.
Where do you put the reference? Where do you put the reference if not in the UPF deployment?
Yeah, in the UPF deployment, there will be a reference. I'm just looking at the spec itself.
But we are generating the UPF deployment from scratch. And how would the UPF deployment generator know what are the vendor-specific parameters that it should put into the UPF deployment? Wouldn't it be
it's just
very natural
just a group
that it is already there?
I mean, there is different approaches. So ISTI, at the moment, we decided not to tackle this, okay? So that's why it's not being taken care of.
I understand, but if we will need it later, then we should design it in a way that we enable this functionality. So I think that right now,
okay, but we have to discuss it. We have to discuss
it to happen even in the future.
So let me ask. So I understand the question. This one, I think we should definitely go in that direction. So it's a question to both Wim and Istvan. Let's say instead of free 5GC, let's assume. Let's say we want to bundle Nokia's UPF instead of free 5GC UPF, and let's say it has some configuration. So let's say if that configuration package for the UPF from Nokia, let's say in addition to these network interfaces, this cluster context and whatever, let's say if it has a couple of config maps defined in the package, won't they be in the current scenario, in the current design, won't they be automatically applied to the workload cluster? Because it's a part of the package.
So yes, so that will happen, right? But of course, how do they know that they are related to the UPF
exactly. And for example,
it is a part of a package. It is a part of a package. Yeah. What I'm saying is it may not be utilized for the UPF deployment CR that we create, but won't they be just apply to the workload cluster as a part of the package, and the the controller that is running in the workload cluster will look at those config maps to create the actual descriptions.
But how does he know which one?
Exactly.
When you say which one, what I mean,
Let's say there is 10 config maps. Which one is relevant for him?
And why is it a config map? Why it isn't a Nokia defined CRD?
so what I mean to say, my question is, if there are 10, let's say UPF package, right? So UPF package, let's say it contains 10 config maps, let's say. Then all, according to me,
but Bala, it could be that 5 of them are related to UPF and 5 others are related to something else, right? That's my point.
But why in the UPF package those other things are there to begin with?
Yeah, but the workload doesn't know that anymore, right? So Isti's point is there should be a reference of these configurations in the UPF deployment to make a reference for it. And I was just looking at the CRD definition. So this is the place where this was foreseen, right?
Yes, that is exactly my point. It is part of the NF deployment spec.
Yes, yeah. And so there is two ways to do. There is 2 ways to do this, right? It's an implicit or an implicit way, right? Explicit means the designer can already do that when he puts the UPF deployment in place and make that reference. The other implicit
because this
approach
configuration comes from the designer, isn't it? So I understand correctly that the configuration will be put together by the designer role. So he's the responsible for configuring the UPF.
Yeah,
it would be natural that it is coming from him.
The other approach is that the UPF deployment function does it and stitch it there based on the reference. That's the other option.
But how does the UPF NF generator knows
based on
the configuration that it has to reference here?
Based on owner reference?
Where is the owner reference points to? If there is no UPF deployment, you add no NF deployment in the original package.
There is 2 options. Either you do it implicitly, you say all, because if today, as today, there is only a package is a single function. You could say anything that it doesn't care, he just applies to this thing, right? So that's a very implicit approach. I'm not saying it's the right approach. I'm just saying that's one way of doing it. That's how we would do it right now. The other one is to do it explicitly. So, and there is 2 ways to do it explicitly, is to do it either with owner reference or you basically someone puts it into the deployment itself. But this is all beyond R1 that we are discussing here, right?
Yeah, that shows how much progress we made in this subgroup when we are already
sure. Yeah, but that's true. Yeah, that's true. And by the way, I agree with Isti's approach, by the way. I think I'm of the same opinion as him, that we should make it more explicit. But we started something to get something to work, right? So
yes. Just for everybody, Wim knows this, but just for everybody to know, that is exactly why I'm bringing this up here now, because we are ready with something that is working. So now we can talk about this. So whatever I started with this, and I want to repeat this. Whatever we have right now is working. There is nothing wrong with what we have right now. It is perfect for release 1. It will do the job for release 1. I'm not saying that it is. We have some fundamental problem with release 1. I'm talking about release 2.
Yeah. This is basically R2 thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I just wanted to clarify this.
Yeah, I think probably I will go ahead and create an issue working with you, Istvan, for R2 on this one.
Okay.
We should definitely consider this. Let's design it. I think you have a sound basement, in my view, for design approach. I think let's brainstorm it and let's define it, and let's do it for R2.
Yeah, and I need to look at one thing in the SDK and how, because the condition should be set or not. I'll let you know. But I agree that the proposal that Isti puts forward, in my view, is the right way forward. So we should work towards that.
Slack?
Sorry, I couldn't catch that.
Either you or Wim, do you mind putting those links in the Slack?
Yeah, I can put it in the Slack.
Yeah.
Yes, and I can write this up a bit in a bit more detail. So this was just a discussion starter slide.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that'd be great. Awesome. Cool. I think we had to
All
run to
right.
that architecture meeting, I think.
Yeah. Yes, I think we are over time. All right. Thanks. Yes.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Bye.
Thanks, Isti. Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, man.